Rain slicks the sidewalk. He's 10, too young to tremble this hard. Hands clutching a crumpled resume. Door swings open. Grease-stained manager glares down. Why should I hire a kid? Because mom's meds cost more than rent. Because hunger's louder than fear. Because one yes tonight could save her tomorrow. Stick around. Watch courage punch poverty in the jaw. The world outside was moving fast, and Malik was standing still. Malik was only 10 years old, but life was already making him grow up faster than he ever imagined. He stood by the bedside of his mother, Tasha, who had been sick for months. The room was dimly lit, shadows stretching across the walls like memories that never faded. Malik's small, trembling hands were wrapped around his mother's. His heart was heavy, but his eyes were determined. "Mom, I'll get us out of here. I promise," he whispered, as his mother's breath came in shallow, ragged bursts. Tasha, once a strong, vibrant woman, was now a shell of herself. Cancer had drained the life from her, and with every passing day, the hope in her eyes dimmed a little more. Malik knew he couldn't stand by and let her slip away. Not like this. He needed help. But who would help a boy like him? The world Malik lived in was not kind to those like him. Poor, forgotten, invisible. He knew that well. But there was one thing his mother had always taught him: never give up. So, he decided to do something about it. Malik walked to the kitchen, where the morning light barely seeped through the window, and he picked up an old, crumpled piece of paper. On it was a job listing he had found earlier, a small diner near the neighborhood. The job wasn't glamorous, but it didn't matter. It was a chance to change things for his mother. But as Malik walked out the door, the weight of what he was about to do hit him. What if they don't hire him? What if this was all a waste of time? The city streets outside were bustling. People on their way to work, the sound of traffic blaring, people living their lives like it was just another day. And then there was Malik, a little boy with a dream too big for his world. He walked to the diner. It wasn't far, but with each step, his heart pounded louder. He felt small, out of place, like a dot in a world that didn't care. He walked in, the door jingled, and the warmth of the diner felt like a slap in the face. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the air. Behind the counter, an older man with a grumpy expression glanced up at him. "Can I help you, kid?" the man barked. Malik opened his mouth to speak, but his throat felt dry. He had never done this before. Asked for help, asked for work. He cleared his throat, straightened his back, and said with all the courage he could muster, "I want to work here. I need the job." The man stared at him, skeptical. "You're just a kid. This ain't no place for—" The man started, but Malik interrupted. "I don't care. I can clean. I can do anything. I just need to help my mom." The man raised an eyebrow. For a moment, he seemed to soften. But then his expression hardened. "All right, kid. You can start by cleaning the back storage room. If you can handle that, maybe we'll talk more." Malik didn't care what the job was. Cleaning was all he could do, but at least it was something. He grabbed a rag and started wiping the counters, the cold sweat dripping down his forehead as he worked with a determination he hadn't felt before. Then, just as Malik was getting lost in his task, the door jingled again, and in walked a man, tall, sharply dressed, with an air of confidence that filled the room. He wasn't just any man. He was a CEO, someone who looked like he owned everything in sight. He was talking to someone on the phone, and Malik watched as he moved past the counter. He couldn't help but notice how powerful the man looked. The CEO paused when he saw Malik, who was still scrubbing the floor with all his strength. For a brief second, their eyes met. Malik's heart skipped a beat. The man didn't say anything. He just gave Malik a quick glance before turning to talk to the manager. But it wasn't just any glance. It was like the CEO saw Malik in a way nobody had ever seen him before. Like he wasn't just a boy or a struggling kid. In that second, there was something more in the CEO's eyes, a flicker of something, a spark of recognition. But then, the man was gone. As the door closed behind the CEO, Malik's heart began to race. He stood there, frozen, holding the rag in his hands. Why did he look at me like that? Why did he care? But there was no time to waste. He had a job to do and a sick mom waiting at home. He needed to make this work. Malik couldn't get the CEO's face out of his mind. The way he looked at him. It wasn't like the others, the people who only saw him as the poor kid, the one with a sick mom and nothing to offer. This man saw him differently. But why? Why did someone like him even notice Malik? The following days at the diner were a blur for Malik. Cleaning, sweeping, mopping, all the things that no one cared about. But to Malik, each small task felt like a step forward. Every minute spent wiping tables or washing dishes was another minute he was closer to helping his mom. But there was still something gnawing at him. He was doing all this work, but it wasn't enough. The money he was making barely covered the bills, and Tasha's health wasn't getting better. It seemed like every day the light in her eyes dimmed a little more, and Malik couldn't do anything to stop it. He needed a way out, a way to change things for good. It was another busy morning at the diner. Malik was running between tables trying to keep up. His stomach rumbled, but he didn't have time to think about food. He'd been up late, tending to his mom, cleaning the house, and then heading straight to work. The door jingled again. Malik froze in place. There was that same feeling, the same tension in the air that he had felt the day the CEO walked in. The man entered again, holding a phone to his ear. This time, the CEO was accompanied by someone else. A tall man with a cold expression who looked like he belonged to a world entirely different from Malik's. The CEO glanced at Malik as he walked by. And this time, Malik didn't feel invisible. He couldn't help but feel that the CEO recognized him. But why? Was this some kind of game? He had to know. Malik stayed focused on his work, determined not to let his curiosity show. But as the CEO made his way to the back office with the other man, something changed. The manager walked up to Malik. "Hey, Malik," the manager said, lowering his voice. "The boss wants to talk to you." Malik's heart skipped a beat. His hands started to sweat. He wiped them on his apron before following the manager into the office. The door was half open, and Malik could see the CEO talking to the tall man. The CEO turned his head as Malik entered. There was a faint smile on his face, and his eyes held that same look of recognition. "You wanted to speak with me?" Malik asked, barely able to hide his nervousness. The CEO gestured for him to sit. "I've been meaning to talk to you, Malik." Malik sat down slowly, unsure of what this was about. His mind raced, but he couldn't figure out what he had done to deserve this attention. Was he getting in trouble? Had he messed up? The CEO didn't waste time. "I've been watching you. Not in a creepy way. Don't get me wrong," he added with a small chuckle. But there was seriousness behind his words. "I've seen the way you work. The way you keep your head down, keep pushing forward no matter what's going on around you. I can respect that." Malik was stunned. He'd been watching me? How? And why? "I know life's not easy for you, Malik. I know you've got a lot of things on your plate," the CEO continued. "But you've got something most people don't have. Grit. And that's not something you can buy." Malik's mind was spinning. What was the CEO saying? What did he want from him? He tried to keep his voice steady. "I'm just trying to help my mom. I don't know what else to do. I'm not asking for anything, but I need to do something." The CEO leaned forward, his expression serious now. "You're right about one thing. You're not asking for anything. But maybe you should be." Malik stared at him, confused. "I can't give you everything, Malik. But I can offer you something that could change your life. I'm starting a project. One that requires someone dedicated, hard-working, and not afraid to take risks. Someone like you." The CEO paused, letting the words hang in the air for a moment. I'm offering you a chance to join my company. An internship at first. But if you prove yourself, there could be more. Much more. Malik was in shock. A chance? A job with the CEO? He was just a kid, working at a diner. He had never imagined that someone like him would get a chance like this. His mind raced back to the diner, to the years of struggle. He thought of his mother, lying in bed, fading away. He had no choice but to take it. I'll take it, Malik said, his voice steady now. I'll prove it to you. The CEO nodded, a smile spreading across his face. Good. I like people who don't hesitate. You've got what it takes, Malik. I can see it already. As Malik left the CEO's office, his mind was a whirlwind. He had just been offered a job with the CEO. A job that could change everything. But what was the catch? Why him? The rest of the day passed in a blur. Malik went through the motions at the diner, but his mind was on the opportunity he had just been given. Could he really pull this off? Was he ready for this kind of change? When the evening came, Malik went straight home to his mom. He looked at her, lying weak in bed, and for the first time in a long time, Malik felt a flicker of hope. This was it. This was his chance to do something real. Something that could help his mother and change the course of his life. But he had no idea just how much that decision would change things. He didn't know how it would change him. How it would challenge him in ways he never expected. But Malik was ready. The days following the CEO's offer felt like they were moving in slow motion for Malik. Everything seemed to change, yet it stayed the same. He woke up early, went to work, and kept doing the best he could. But there was an undeniable weight on his shoulders now. The weight of possibility. The job at the diner was no longer just a way to make ends meet. It was a stepping stone. A part of something much bigger than himself. The CEO's offer wasn't just a job. It was a chance to change everything. Malik had been given the opportunity of a lifetime. And now the only thing that mattered was whether he could prove himself. It was time. The CEO had told him that his first day at the company would be the following Monday, and that day had come. Malik stood in front of the tall, gleaming office building, feeling smaller than ever. The suit-and-tie crowd moved in and out of the building like it was their second home. Malik was just a kid. He didn't belong here. Did he? He felt his heart pounding in his chest as he entered the lobby. The polished floors seemed to shine brighter under his worn shoes. He felt like everyone was watching him, judging him. What did I get myself into? The receptionist, a woman with a polite smile, greeted him. You must be Malik. The CEO is expecting you. She handed him a visitor's badge, and with a small wave, sent him on his way. Malik's stomach flipped as he followed the path she pointed him down, to a conference room. It was big. Too big. There were huge windows, views of the city, and sleek, modern furniture. Everything looked expensive, so much so that Malik felt like an imposter walking through it. But then, he saw the CEO, who stood up from his chair and extended a hand. Malik, glad you made it. Welcome to the team. The first few days at the CEO's company were a whirlwind. Malik was eager to prove himself, but everything felt new. He was tasked with various small jobs, mostly running errands and shadowing other employees. It wasn't glamorous, but it was an opportunity, and Malik made sure to take advantage of every moment. He would go to the CEO's office every day and listen as he explained things. Corporate culture, business ethics, even the little things like how to conduct himself professionally. But the real test came during one of the CEO's meetings. Malik had been asked to organize some files for the CEO's upcoming presentation. He was nervous, his hands shaking as he neatly placed the papers on the desk. That's when the CEO walked in, looking a little flustered. He glanced at the file stack and paused. You know, Malik, the CEO said, these documents aren't arranged in the way I need them. They need to be in a specific order for the presentation. It's simple, but you missed it. Malik's heart sank. He had messed up. his face flushed with embarrassment. This was it. He had been given a chance, but maybe he wasn't cut out for this kind of job. Maybe he had already failed. But the CEO didn't stop there. He saw the disappointment in Malik's face, and he put a hand on his shoulder. Listen, Malik. Everyone makes mistakes. It's how you learn from them that counts. You see the problem? Do you understand what I'm asking for? Malik nodded, trying to swallow his nerves. Yes, sir. I'll fix it. The CEO smiled, almost as if he were testing Malik's resolve. Good. Go ahead. And remember, this is how you learn. You make a mistake, and you get better. Later that day, Malik took a deep breath, feeling more determined than ever. He spent the rest of the afternoon going over the presentation, organizing the files until they were perfect. By the time the CEO needed the documents, Malik had them ready and in the correct order. The CEO looked at the files, nodded approvingly, and said, "Much better, Malik. That's the kind of work I want to see." For the first time since he arrived, Malik felt proud. This wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about self-respect, confidence, and growth. The CEO had trusted him with something small, and he had turned it into something big. The mistake had taught him something more valuable than any task ever could: how to bounce back. That evening, Malik went home feeling a sense of accomplishment he had never felt before. He walked into his small house, and his mom, Tasha, looked at him, her eyes still clouded with the illness that drained her energy. But there was something different in Malik's eyes. A spark of hope, of confidence. "How was your day?" she asked, her voice weak but still kind. Malik smiled, something he hadn't done in so long. "It was good, Mom. I'm learning." But even as Malik walked out of the office each day, his reality was waiting for him. His mother's condition continued to worsen, and he wasn't sure how much longer she would be able to keep going. The bills piled up, and Malik knew his family still needed more help. This job wasn't the end of his struggles. It was just the beginning. As the weeks went on, Malik kept growing, learning, failing, picking himself up again. His hard work was starting to pay off. He was becoming more confident in his role, but deep down, he knew there was still so much more to be done. The CEO's presence in Malik's life had given him something he had been searching for: a sense of possibility, hope. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about changing the course of his life and his family's future. He was learning to think bigger, to envision a life beyond his current circumstances. Malik knew his future wasn't set in stone, but he was determined to shape it. The weight of two worlds. Malik's life was changing, but it felt like the world had divided him into two parts. There was the Malik at the office, the confident intern who was learning the ropes, gaining trust, and making a name for himself. But then there was the Malik at home, the son of a sick mother. The boy with a heart full of hope, but still facing a world that refused to let him forget where he came from. Every day was a tug of war between these two lives. The office was a world of polished shoes, crisp suits, and calculated decisions. Malik had quickly realized that the people there didn't care about poverty, illness, or struggles. They cared about productivity and results. But at home, he was still just Malik, the boy who couldn't get a break, the son who was desperately trying to hold his family together. He'd wake up early every day, ready to face both sides of his life. The mornings were always the hardest. He'd get dressed in the best clothes he could afford, a hand-me-down jacket and a pair of shoes that didn't quite fit right, but that was all he had. His mother, Tasha, would look at him with the same hopeful eyes, though she was too weak to say much anymore. Her illness was draining her, but she tried to smile for him, the way she always had. "Go on, Malik," she'd whisper. "Make me proud." And he did. Every single day, he carried her words with him. But no matter how hard he worked, the weight of his home life was never far behind. His colleagues at the office never asked about his personal life. They never cared that he was running home after work to take care of his sick mother, or that he had to skip meals sometimes just to make sure she had enough to eat. Malik's work life seemed to be improving, but the pressure of juggling everything was beginning to take its toll. He was constantly tired, running between work and home, trying to make a good impression at the company, while also trying to keep his mother alive. It felt like he was spinning plates, always worried that one would come crashing down. One particular evening, after an exhausting day at work, Malik arrived home to find that Tasha had fainted. He rushed to her side, heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't bear to see her like this, but it had become all too familiar. The doctors had already told him that her condition was worsening, but he didn't want to believe it. Not his mother, not the woman who had raised him to be strong, to never give up. Malik's hands shook as he dialed the phone number of the nearest hospital, but the line was busy. His mind raced. What if I can't get her the help she needs? He had no more money for treatment. He had no one else to turn to. But then, a thought hit him. What if he reached out to the CEO? He had helped him before, given him a chance. But could Malik ask for more help? Could he really ask him to save his mother's life? Malik stared at the phone, his finger hovering over the call button. For a long moment, he stood there, lost in a battle he hadn't prepared for. His pride and fear of appearing weak clashed with his desperation. What if the CEO didn't care? What if I was just another kid to him? Someone he offered help to once, but never thought of again. In the end, Malik couldn't make the call. Fear paralyzed him. He hung up, sat down on the floor next to his mother, and put his head in his hands. What if I failed her? The thought crushed him. But the next morning, when Malik arrived at work, something had changed. The CEO approached him, as he always did, with a smile and a friendly greeting. But this time, there was something different in his demeanor. There was concern in his eyes. "Malik, are you okay?" the CEO asked, his tone soft but sincere. "You don't look like yourself today." Malik tried to brush it off with a smile, but the CEO wasn't fooled. He could see the exhaustion in Malik's eyes, the tension in his posture. For the first time, the CEO looked at Malik not just as an employee, but as someone who was struggling. "I know things are tough for you. You've been working so hard, and I respect that. But I also know that sometimes people need help. You don't have to do this alone, Malik. If there's something I can do, whether it's for you or your family, I want to help." Malik was speechless. Help? From the CEO? He had always respected this man, admired him even. But asking him for help felt like crossing an invisible line. But the CEO didn't give him a chance to decline. He continued, "I know a great doctor. Someone who has helped a lot of people in situations like yours. I can get you in touch with them. They may be able to help your mother." Malik's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I'll cover the costs. Let me take care of that, Malik. Just focus on your family." For the first time in weeks, Malik felt a wave of relief wash over him. He wasn't alone. The CEO's offer felt like a lifeline, something he hadn't dared to hope for. But as the CEO arranged for the doctor's visit, Malik couldn't shake the feeling that he was asking too much. Was he really worth all this effort? He had come from nothing. His whole life had been a battle for survival. Could a rich man like the CEO really care about him? The doctor's visit was scheduled, and Malik's nerves were at an all-time high. As Tasha was examined, the doctor spoke calmly, explaining everything to Malik. She had a fighting chance now. A chance that Malik hadn't thought was possible. The CEO had given them that chance. Even as the doctor's treatment plan was set in motion, Malik still battled with himself. He had never been the type to ask for help. But now, he was receiving it, and he didn't know how to feel. It wasn't just the doctor's help that bothered him. It was the CEO's kindness. Malik didn't know how to repay him. He didn't know if he ever could. At night, he would sit by his mother's bed, watching her sleep, holding her hand. The weight of everything was still heavy on him. But now, for the first time in a long while, He felt like he had something to hold on to. Hope. Malik's life had started to shift. Slowly. Painfully. But surely. His mom was receiving treatment, thanks to the CEO's unexpected help. But while things seemed to be improving for Tasha, Malik's mind was still full of questions. There was one question that haunted him every night. Why? Why had the CEO stepped in so easily? Why did he care about a boy like him? And even though Malik had promised to work harder and show his worth, there was still a sense of guilt gnawing at him. Every time he thought about the CEO's kindness, it felt like a burden he didn't know how to repay. Malik tried to push those thoughts away and focus on his work, but it was hard. The fear of failure, the overwhelming weight of being just a kid, still haunted him. But then, something happened that would change everything. One evening, as Malik was about to leave work, the CEO stopped him. "Malik, I need to talk to you." Malik's stomach flipped, his heart raced. What had he done wrong now? "You're doing great, Malik," the CEO began, his voice calm and steady. But there was something in his tone that made Malik's nerves flare up. "I've been keeping an eye on you. You've got a lot of potential, more than you even realize. But I've noticed something important." Malik swallowed hard. "What is it?" The CEO leaned forward, his eyes serious. "I know you've been struggling with more than just work. You've been dealing with your mom's illness, the pressure of everything piling up on your shoulders. You don't have to do this alone, Malik, and you don't have to carry all this weight by yourself." Malik looked down, his mind racing. He didn't know how to respond. The offer of help had been one thing, but now it was something bigger, something that went beyond work, beyond the simple exchange of help for a job. The CEO continued, "I want to help you, Malik. Not just with your mom's treatment, but with your future. I see something in you that most people don't, and I want to make sure you don't give up on yourself." Malik felt like his entire world had shifted on its axis. The CEO wanted to help him, not just in small ways, but he was offering to change Malik's life. "What do you mean?" Malik asked, his voice shaky. He couldn't believe it. The CEO's gaze softened. "I want to offer you something. I know you've been juggling a lot, and I know your dreams are bigger than this diner job. So I'm giving you an opportunity. You've got the drive, Malik. Now it's time to give you the tools to make that drive work for you. I'm offering you a full-time position at my company." Malik's heart thudded in his chest. A full-time position at the CEO's company? It felt like something out of a dream, like a prize that wasn't meant for someone like him. He had only been working at the diner for a short time, and now, here he was, being handed a chance to change everything. Malik thought about his mother, lying in bed at home, and all the years he'd spent wondering if he would ever have a chance at something more. He thought about his struggles, his days of feeling like he would never be enough, and how every time he tried to hope, life seemed to knock him back down. But then there was the CEO, offering him a chance, offering him a way out of the life he had known, offering him a chance to be something more, to be someone more. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Malik said, his voice barely above a whisper. His heart was pounding. He had worked so hard, but this opportunity was too big, too scary. What if I fail? What if I let him down? The CEO smiled, his eyes kind. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. All I need from you is to keep working, to keep learning, and to keep believing in yourself. I know you've got it in you, Malik. The rest will follow. You can take this opportunity, or you can walk away. The choice is yours, but I know you'll make the right one." For the first time in weeks, Malik felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real hope, not the fleeting kind that came in the form of empty promises, but the kind that was backed by someone who believed in him. He could see it in the CEO's eyes, and in that moment, Malik made a choice he would never regret. "I'll take it. I'll work hard. I won't let you down." The days that followed were a blur. Malik started working full-time at the CEO's company. The transition was rough at first. He was still getting used to being in a professional environment, surrounded by people who had the education and connections he had never had. But the CEO was right. Malik had drive, and he had a will to succeed that couldn't be shaken. Malik threw himself into his work. He asked questions, he learned, and most importantly, he grew. Every mistake became a lesson. Every challenge became an opportunity. And slowly, Malik began to feel like he was becoming the man he had always hoped he could be. Someone who was not defined by his past, but by his determination and ability to fight for what he wanted. And even though he worked harder than he ever had before, there was one thing that kept him going: the thought of his mother. He wanted to make her proud. He wanted to see her smile again. He wanted to show her that everything he was doing was for her. One day, a week after Malik's official start at the company, the CEO surprised him. He showed up at Malik's home unannounced, just as Malik was finishing up his day. Tasha was sitting on the couch, looking a little better since she had started her treatments. When she saw the CEO standing in the doorway, she blinked in surprise. "Mr. Carter? What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice weak but filled with curiosity. The CEO smiled warmly. "I wanted to check on Malik, and I thought I'd come by and see how you're doing." Malik was speechless. He never expected the CEO to make a personal visit to his home. But as the CEO sat down and started talking to Tasha, Malik felt a deep sense of gratitude well up inside him. For the first time in a long while, everything felt right. The kindness, the second chances, and the belief in himself. Malik realized that this moment was everything he had ever wanted, and it had all started with one simple decision: the decision to not give up. Malik was standing at the intersection of his old life and the new one that was slowly being built for him. The CEO had kept his word. Malik's life was changing in ways he had never imagined. Every day he spent at the company, learning, working, and growing, felt like another step away from the life of struggle he had been born into. But the weight of that life was never far behind him. His mom, Tasha, was improving, thanks to the treatments provided by the CEO. She was still weak, but the spark in her eyes had returned. She would smile at Malik when he came home, even when she was tired, and tell him she was proud of him. Yet, the battle was far from over. While Malik was climbing the corporate ladder, his past was always waiting to catch up with him. The feeling of being the outsider, of not fitting in, still haunted him. At work, people looked at him differently now. There was a new respect for him. They saw him as the CEO's protégé, the boy who had worked his way up from nothing. But Malik knew it wasn't that simple. Every day was a reminder that no matter how much success he gained, the gap between him and the life he came from would never truly disappear. But the shift in his fate wasn't just about the job. It was about what he had learned along the way. Life wasn't just about surviving anymore. Malik had stopped living in the shadows of his circumstances, and now he was beginning to live for something more. Malik's first official week working as a full-time employee felt like he was walking a tightrope. He knew he had to work hard to earn the respect of his colleagues, but he also knew that every step he took in this new world could bring him crashing back down. The office was a different world. The people who worked there were polished, educated, confident. They didn't carry the same weight Malik did, the weight of poverty, illness, and uncertainty. Sometimes, they treated him differently, like he didn't belong. One day, while Malik was walking through the office, carrying some paperwork for the CEO, he overheard a conversation between two of his colleagues. They didn't know he was listening. "Did you hear about the new intern?" one of them asked. "Malik, right? The kid from the diner? I heard he's got the CEO's ear now." The other colleague laughed. "Yeah, it's amazing how fast someone can climb when they've got a connection." The first colleague responded with a bitter tone. "Must be nice to have someone pull you up like that." Malik's heart sank. It was like a slap in the face. Was that how they saw him? The kid who was only there because of the CEO's favor? Did they really think he didn't deserve it? The thoughts echoed in his mind as he walked back to his desk. But then, he took a deep breath. No one would ever know how hard he worked to get here. No one could ever take away his journey, no matter what they thought. The next few days were an internal battle. Malik felt the pressure to prove that he belonged. But he also realized something important. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. He just needed to prove it to himself. Malik started taking more initiative. He worked late, often staying in the office long after everyone else had gone home. The tasks became easier, the work more natural. But the real breakthrough came when the CEO asked him for help on a major project. It wasn't a small task. The project was about revamping a division of the company, and Malik was given a chance to lead a team. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for, and now, it was all in his hands. As Malik walked into the meeting room, surrounded by people who had more experience and higher positions than him, he felt a familiar nervousness rise in his chest. But this time, he didn't shrink back. He didn't hold himself back like he used to. He spoke up, giving his ideas confidently, sharing his vision for the project. He wasn't just the intern anymore. He wasn't just the poor kid trying to survive. He was someone with value, someone whose ideas could make a difference. The project turned out to be a success, one of the most successful initiatives the company had seen in years. The team praised Malik's leadership, and the CEO himself made a point to commend Malik in front of everyone during the company's monthly meeting. "I want to take a moment to recognize Malik," the CEO said, standing at the front of the room. "He's shown incredible growth over the past few months. His ideas, his dedication, and his heart are what made this project such a success. Malik, keep up the great work." The applause from the room was deafening. Malik's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. This was what he had worked for. This was his moment. But there was more. The CEO walked over to him after the meeting, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I knew you had it in you, Malik." The CEO's smile was warm, full of pride. "You've proven that you belong here, and I couldn't be prouder of you." As Malik left the office that day, his mind was buzzing. He had done it. He had not only proven his worth to the CEO, but he had proven it to himself. He wasn't the poor kid from the diner anymore. He wasn't the boy who had to ask for help, the boy who was always stuck in a cycle of survival. He had broken free. And yet, even as Malik reveled in his success, a small voice in the back of his head reminded him of the battles he had left to fight. Tasha's condition, though improving, still weighed heavily on him. The future was still uncertain, and Malik knew that the journey ahead was far from over. But now, Malik felt ready. He had the strength, the determination, and the heart to face whatever came next. And, for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid of what the future held. He was excited. He was ready to face the challenges and make his mark on the world. It was a quiet evening when Malik finally allowed himself to slow down. He stood in his small apartment, staring out the window at the city that had changed him. The lights from the skyscrapers twinkled like stars, a constant reminder that he was part of something bigger. But more than the lights, it was the feeling of being someone who belonged, that made him feel grounded. His mother, Tasha, was in the living room, sitting in her favorite chair, a warm blanket wrapped around her. Her health had improved dramatically thanks to the treatments and the CEO's generous support. She smiled at him when she saw him lost in thought. She didn't need to say anything. Her eyes said it all. She was proud. Malik took a deep breath, letting the weight of everything he had been through sink in. He'd come so far from where he started. The boy who had walked into that diner, desperate to help his mother, was now standing tall, working side by side with the most powerful people in the company. But even with all the success, the lessons he had learned were far more valuable than any promotion or paycheck. Malik realized that life was never going to be easy. The hardships he faced, his mother's illness, the struggle to make ends meet, the judgment he received from others, had shaped him. but they didn't define him. His resilience did. He had learned that the hardest battles were the ones fought within. The voice inside his head that told him he wasn't good enough, the fear of failure, the doubt that had plagued him for years. They were all just voices. Malik had learned to block them out, to listen to the voice of possibility, not fear. There was another lesson too: humility. Malik had never expected to receive help, let alone the kind of support that came from someone like the CEO. But it wasn't about the handout. It was about the opportunity to show what he was made of. He thought about all the people he had met in the past few months, the CEO, the other employees, even the ones who had doubted him. They had all been part of his journey. But the most important part of that journey was his ability to stand tall and believe in his own worth, even when the world didn't. The CEO's visit to Malik's home had been a pivotal moment in his journey. When the CEO had shown up unexpectedly, offering not just financial support but emotional encouragement, Malik had seen him as something more than a boss. He had become a mentor, a guide who showed him that success wasn't just about doing well at work, but about doing good in the world. The way Malik had been able to balance his responsibilities, his job, his family, his own growth, was a testament to his character. He hadn't let his background define him, but instead, he had used it as fuel to keep moving forward. And now, as he reflected on everything that had happened, Malik realized that his journey wasn't about achieving perfection. It was about continuing to grow, no matter what life threw at him. The real success wasn't about titles or money. It was about the person Malik had become. He was stronger, kinder, more resilient than he ever thought possible. He knew that life would continue to present challenges, but Malik also knew that he had the strength to face them head on. Malik walked over to his mother, who was now resting on the couch, the faint smile still playing on her lips. He knelt beside her, gently taking her hand. "How are you feeling, Mom?" he asked, his voice soft. She smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "I'm feeling better, Malik. You've made me so proud." Malik nodded, his throat tightening with emotion. "I just want to make sure you're okay. I want you to see everything I'm going to do." Tasha squeezed his hand, her voice filled with pride and love. "You've already done so much, Malik. You've already changed your life, and you've changed mine too. I'm proud of you, not just for what you're doing, but for who you are." Malik felt the tears threatening to spill over, but he wiped them away. This was the moment he had been fighting for. The moment where everything he had worked for, every hardship he had endured, had come full circle. He had made it. He had made his mother proud. Malik sat back, taking in everything he had learned, everything he had gained. Success wasn't just about overcoming obstacles. It was about how you carried yourself in the face of those obstacles. It was about the strength to stand up again, even when you felt like you couldn't. It was about giving back, about recognizing that you didn't get anywhere on your own. The biggest lesson Malik had learned was this: you don't have to be perfect to be successful. You just have to be determined, resilient, and true to yourself. He had taken every hardship in his life and used it to fuel his growth. And now, as he looked around at his life, Malik knew that the journey wasn't over. There would always be more challenges to face, more obstacles to overcome. But Malik was ready. He was no longer the scared boy who had no chance. He was someone who had made his own path, who had taken control of his destiny. Malik's story wasn't just about his success. It was about every person who had ever struggled, who had ever felt like they didn't belong. It was a reminder that no matter where you start, no matter how hard life gets, you have the power to change your story. If you've ever faced an overwhelming force in your life, share your story in the comments. And if you believe in standing up for what's right, hit that like button. You are stronger than you think, and your journey is just beginning.